Writing effective language objectives. Typically, academic language is not used in everyday settings with friends and family, in informal reading and writing such as digital communication, and in social media. Academic language is more formal, abstract, and challenging. It is the language required to participate in academic instruction and to be able to read texts and write original academic and literary compositions. Many students, especially English learners, have little exposure to academic language outside of the classroom. Writing and sharing language objectives is an effective way to focus on specific academic language learning during content lessons. Teachers are generally comfortable writing content objectives for lessons because those are based on content standards and are sometimes stated right in the curricular materials, such as in this unit, students will, but language objectives tend to be more challenging to write. Including a language objective in every lesson was popularized by the SIOP model beginning in the late 1990s and is now a widely accepted practice. After more than 20 years, it is the feature of SIOP about which we continue to receive the most questions. In short, content objectives are related to the key concepts of the lesson. Although language objectives connect to the lesson's topic or activities, their purpose is to promote student academic language growth in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Writing a language objective isn't always as straightforward as a content objective because it is based on an aspect of language that students need to learn. It typically takes more thought and preparation. Fortunately, there are ELL or ELD standards to help guide you in writing language objectives. In our book, Developing Academic Language, we provide guidelines for identifying objectives and incorporating them into lessons. These guidelines include determining what we want students to learn and then considering the language needed to accomplish those objectives. It is important that active, measurable verbs are used in objectives so that learning can be assessed. Students are more likely to take responsibility for their own learning when measurable objectives allow them to gauge their progress. Avoid verbs such as learn, understand, and become aware of, since these cannot be measured. In a unit on the Lewis and Clark expedition, the guiding standard is explain events, ideas, or concepts in a historical, scientific, or technical text. A content objective for a lesson in this unit might be students will identify and describe the main events on the Lewis and Clark expedition. Language objectives might be students will describe the main events using past tense verbs, and students will categorize vocabulary terms using a list group label activity. We promote the practice of posting and discussing objectives with students. An agenda, commonly written by teachers on the board, is a list of activities and is not the same as objectives. Objectives focus on an outcome, not an activity. They are content-based learning targets students need to be able to accomplish the lesson's activities. Remember, objectives are what you want students to know or be able to do by the end of the lesson, so instruction needs to address what you've set out to do. Posting and discussing objectives let students know what they will learn and how they'll know that they've learned it. When writing language objectives, we suggest that teachers, first, have a consistent introduction that students recognize. Pick whichever one will resonate with your students. SWIBAT, which stands for Students Will Be Able To, SW, Students Will, We Will, Today I Will, and so forth. Second, state the outcome using active, measurable verbs across language domains, reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Examples of active, measurable verbs include persuade, summarize, read aloud, identify, confirm, edit, explain, and illustrate. Some verbs, of course, fit in multiple categories. Compare works in writing and speaking, as does persuade. Third, focus on the aspect of language students will learn or practice in the lesson. The language feature may need to be explicitly taught or refined and practiced. Here's how a language objective may be constructed. There is an introduction, an active, measurable verb, the language to be learned or practiced. So the completed objective would be students will describe the main events using past tense verbs. Additional information may be part of the objective if desired for clarity. So in this example, there's an introduction, an active measurable verb, the language to be learned or practiced, and the activity is specified. So the completed objective is students will categorize vocabulary terms using a list group label activity. One thing is certain, the more you practice writing language objectives, the easier it becomes. Keep in mind what SIOP experts have advised from their experience. Nobody dies from writing a bad language objective, and a bad language objective is better than no language objective. For more information on writing effective language objectives, check out the book, Developing Academic Language Using the SIOP Model, and the book, Making Content Comprehensible for English Learners, the SIOP Model, 5th edition.